Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions Podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and their professional teams struggle to clarify great capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy. Using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is the best way to exit highly appreciated assets tax deferred so you can create, preserve, and grow your wealth. I'm your co-host, Pearson York, filling in for Brett Swarts. Each episode, I'm joined by some of the best wealth, business, real estate, and leadership individuals in the world to share ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together, we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. We're streaming on expertcresecrets.com, the Capital Gains Tax Solutions YouTube channel, and the Facebook channel. So go ahead and leave a comment, hit the like button, subscribe button, notification bell. It really helps us out. Today's guest is a CPA, tax strategist that's been doing this for about 15 years. And she's going to provide a ton of value to us. So please welcome Shiloh Johnson. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Awesome. Okay, so Shiloh, tell us a little bit about your story. How'd you get to where you are?
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Lots of hard work and a lot of chaos. So, a million and one years ago, I thought I was going to study law. And instead, I had a boss at the time who was the head of the tax department. She said, "You should study tax. There are not very many women, and not very many minority women. You will go very far and you'll never have to worry about getting a job." She was absolutely right. I changed my major to taxation. Got an undergrad in accounting and a master's degree in taxation. And then I stayed in corporate tax, which is basically in-house tax teams for large corporations. And I've been doing that for 13 years. And then I stepped away from that and started working with small businesses and individuals that were running their own business, like in the sort of sole proprietor space, trying to figure out how to navigate tax issues. And so I took my corporate experience, added some passion for technology, and Compliant was born. And that was 2019. We've raised a few rounds of funding. We have 45 employees, and we're here now.
Going live. Awesome. Okay, so you have a ton of experience in corporate tax world,
Yep.
and now you've kind of combined your two loves for tech and taxes. So uh,
Yeah.
before we get into that a little bit, what are one or two spiritual gifts or strengths that you had that have led you to be successful?
Oh, that's a great question. Gosh, I am annoyingly optimistic. When you are one of less than 20 minority women in the space that I'm in and have gone as far as I've gone, you have to be. It's like blind optimism a little bit and belief in yourself. So that one, I think it just holds core to me. There's nothing in the world I can't do. And if I can't do it, I'm gonna figure it out. So there's that, and then maybe just belief in other people.
So the eternal optimist, and you're just got a love for other people and see the best in them. So
Mm,
awesome.
exactly.
Okay, cool. Tell us a little bit about Compliant. Well, what is it? What's it do? Why is it
Yeah.
different?
Yeah, so a million years ago, when I was first thinking up this idea in 2019, I had a handful of clients that really had gotten themselves in major tax holes, like hundreds of thousands of dollars owed, in some cases, some millions of dollars owed. People who had never paid tax ever in the history of the life of the company and were all of a sudden being audited. People didn't know what sales tax was. People were charging it and keeping it. It was just really bad chaos. And I kept asking everyone over and over, like, how did you know where to start? Like, who advised you, or where did you go, or how did you know what to do after you decided to become a business? And everyone was just like, we didn't. You just wait around for someone to, send you a notice or something, and then you deal with it when it comes in. But the problem was, like, by the time you get a tax notice, you're already years and years behind, and you owe way more money than you can afford to pay. So what I used to do in corporate was I would source tax research for new lines of business for large companies. So I took that expertise and all of that information that I've had over just working with different municipalities and governments across the years, and I just turned it into a technology platform, which was once a very manual process. So that's sort of how we got to the idea. It's like, how can I be their point one? From I want to start a business to here are all the things that I need to do to make sure my business is doing what it needs to do correctly on the tax side of things. And that includes like budgeting, savings, all of it. So we took the helm of taking all of that tax research data and compounding it into a platform where a business just logs in, they give us some information about who they are and what they do, and then we return back to them all of the tax types that apply to their business, and we calendar them all out for them throughout the year. And then we give them some tidbits of information so they can save money and time, getting them through the end goal a lot quicker. And then from there, we bankrolled a few more things on top of that. So we added in tax budgeting so we can help the business start to think about how much to set to the side for each tax type that applies to them by quarter. And then we started thinking about, okay, now we know what to pay. Let's start putting the money away so that they can have the money to pay it when it's time to pay the bill, which got us to Tax Wallet, which is our third feature, which we try to help businesses sort of automatically save via deposit inflow and then putting that money in those envelopes at the appropriate amounts. And then when it's time to pay the bill, they've already got the money there. They don't have to worry about it. And so now we're getting into filing and paying for all different the 10 different types of tax types that apply to small businesses, which is different than other things because usually like TurboTax is income tax based, tax jar is sales tax based. We cover them all.
So basically, it sounds like you guys are solving the problem of, I don't want to say ignorance, but just not knowing what's due when it's due,
Yeah.
right? Getting that all together in a certain, calendar so that it says, hey, this is coming up, you're going to have to pay that. And then you've created on top of that
Yep.
some different ways to basically force save all of the, the different bills that they're going to have to pay. So at the end, they're not
Yep.
feeling it as much as it would be because you've been planning and saving all year.
Exactly right. Exactly
All
right.
right. So when are you going to start like the tax deferral mitigation strategies? Where does that fit into this whole thing? How do you not pay as much?
So we took a step back from trying to take a like tax deferral credit like education piece first because there were so many players in the game doing that. Like Main Street was doing it, Ardius was doing it. I know so many NeoTax was doing it. We're like, we're not going to reinvent the wheel by creating this like tax deferral structure for them to optimize all of their credits. Right now, we've got to get a little bit earlier than that. We've got to grab the people that are not even paying their taxes and then start to get them to think about it, and then we can level them up to tax deferrals and thinking through how to help them save so that they're not having to pay as much. It's sort of like a chicken and egg problem, and we're seeing a lot. A lot of people are like doing all the sort of step 7 steps when step 1 is not even happening. So I think in that space, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We think there are a lot of great tools we can integrate as an API that we can work alongside to help business owners maximize how much money they can save.
So basically, that's not your ideal client. Your ideal client is the person who is starting a business, they're starting to generate revenues, but they're not even aware of their tax situation at all. And now you're coming in, you're like, okay, we're step 1, structure. Let's get this squared away. And then we'll outsource the rest of these other tax strategies and so on and so forth.
Exactly right.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So in that space then, right, and you're grabbing these current clients that don't have a ton of experience, knowledge, and whatever. Do you have different like education platforms, or like how do you go about that education process?
Yeah, so we have something called a resource hub. You can find it on our website, compliant.co/resource hub. And literally, we have tiered by category. We have white papers, we have webinars, recordings, we have blogs, we have co-hosted blogs that I've participated on other platforms with. We have all of the publications I've participated in. Anywhere I have taught or anybody on my team has taught, all of that information lives in our resource hub. We like to say that tax is only one part process. Second part, education. You can't process anything if you don't know what it is you're supposed to be doing and how to benefit, right? You think about tax as in your case, it's a lot of sort of a game between how I can manipulate the money so that I can get the outcome that I'd like to get. Similar in this space for the people we're trying to serve is like we have to figure out how to manipulate the money, but we can't do that if we don't even know where the money is. So we think a lot about how to arm our customers with that information so that they can make those holistic decisions that are best for them and not relying on service providers to make all those decisions for them.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you planning on is there like a certain threshold that you have to get your client to in order for you to start thinking about, all right, the tax saving strategies, right? How to not pay taxes, different strategies like that. Like when is that threshold that you start getting to that point?
When they start making $1, day one, dollar input one. The second they make their first sale, they need to start thinking about tax deferral and thinking about how they can save money. But that I think is coupled with they've done some of the precursor steps. I think, and then not only focusing just on like how do I, sign this thing or pay this bill, but also how can I maximize what I save, which is a tenement to, income tax, but most other tax types you don't get a ton of savings. Sales tax is sales tax. There's
Sure.
no manipulation there.
Sure, sure. Are there a specific like type of business that you like to focus on? You mentioned sales tax. So, I mean, are you going after the retail client that's got, cost of goods and stuff like that with sales tax? Are you going after service-based businesses? What type of clientele are you going after?
Yeah, it's across the board. So we have clients that are doctors' offices, therapy, we have e-commerce, we see a little bit of both service and product offerings, hair, all types of companies that are doing all types of things. It tends to be the similarity tends to happen in like the size of the business. Usually they're like new or small. They have maybe a handful of employees, maybe not. They might have a bookkeeper, not really. They don't really know. They feel super uninformed. And so as they sit alongside us for whatever education we provided them, they're like, oh, this is super helpful. Let me see what else you can do. And so that tends to work really well for the smaller business. It doesn't industry agnostic.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So, what is your number one secret to saving money in taxes?
Number one secret. I don't know if there
Number
are
one
any
secret.
secrets. It's pretty obvious. Um, Number one secret. Uh, I am a tax research buff at heart, so I do a lot of tax research. I have subscriptions to the major tax research platforms. So like Thomson Reuters, CCH, Walter Schluer, are places where I consider, reliable sources. So I'd say my secret is reliable sources of information and making sure that you're not just like Googling and then you took the first article and that must be true. Get to the core of real information that is backed by tax code that you then can verify. Sometimes we get too reliant on third party resources and then that information is transposed incorrectly and now we have a mess on our hands.
Sure. Okay. So tell me, have you learned about the deferred sales trust on the sale of a highly appreciated asset, and kind of like what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, interesting. I haven't done deferred sales trust since college, but let me see. What are my thoughts on it? I don't know. Teach me something. What do you got? I might have thoughts after you tell me some information.
Well, so okay. This whole podcast kind of like this capital gains tax solutions, right? So its main
Mm,
objective is to our main kind of like cornerstone strategy that we like to use on the sale of a highly appreciated asset is called a deferred sales trust, and it is basically it's backed by IRC code 453. So it's an installment sale at the foundation of it. But essentially, what you're able to do is you're able to liquidate a highly appreciated asset. It's pretty agnostic to the kind. So it can be a stock or a business or real estate or art or crypto or whatever. It goes into this unrelated third party trust, business trust, and then the asset is liquidated immediately. And that trust is funded.
mhm.
And then that trust turns around and writes you a note for 10 years at a certain preferred rate of return. And then those funds get reinvested
Sure,
into whatever you want. It's an alternative to like a
sure.
1031 exchange. But it's got a lot of benefits, including no time constraints, no like kind constraints. You can sell a business and go into stocks and bonds and real estate. You could sell real estate and go into stocks and just sit on the sidelines until you
Yeah,
find a good deal and then go back. So there's all these different advantages to it unlocks a ton of different freedoms as far as time freedom,
sounds like it.
location freedom, entrepreneurial freedom, like kind freedom. It opens up a whole world. So you're not constricted like you would be with a 1031 or
Certainly, with the traditional tent. Yeah.
yeah. And so it's the one of the things that we kind of come across, relatively regularly is that um, it's a transaction that's not very common. because a lot of people don't have these mega transactions all the time, right? Like you're not
Right.
selling a $50 million business every day, right? Or even every
Yeah.
year, right? That's maybe if you're in the top 1% of the top 1%, you've done two or three of them or
Sure.
four of them, right? But the
Sure.
average person, even the person who's making 50, is not having multiple transactions of huge assets and stuff like that.
Right.
So when the time comes, a lot of people don't have a ton of information about it just because there's just not that frequent of a transaction, right? Frequent of an event. So
Mm-mm.
there's a lot more, knowledge and stuff especially from the different CPAs and so on and so forth, about strategies for income tax and all that kind of stuff. So one of the things that
Super
we do,
interesting.
yeah, one of the things that we
Mm-hmm.
do is, we focus on that particular like little piece. So when, let's say one of
Um,
your clients has that big transaction that comes in, right? We have the strategy that allows them to just unlock a ton of these freedoms to go out there and reinvest the proceeds net of eternity fees instead of net of taxes. And so it's just a really powerful strategy. It keeps wealth in the family. Um, it can move assets outside the taxable estate, so you don't have to pay the estate tax. Your kids don't have to pay the estate tax if you pass, when you pass, right? Um, so it's just there's a lot of cool stuff about it. And so we'll
that's
have this
super
conversation
interesting.
a couple of times, um, and so it's just we always like to kind of pose that question, right? And different people come in with different backgrounds and so on and so forth, right? The guy who's doing tech, like a tech startup for, um, whatever, a call centers or something, right? Doesn't have any idea what,
Sure.
about the different tax strategies and so on and so forth, right? Um, but I was just curious
I
since
would
you're,
say that I was going to say, I would say that that's super interesting for like the founder tech side of what I do. I think there is not a lot of conversation around how to shift like these newfound valuations in your potential exit and what will happen to that post the exit, especially in the tech space, because you have people who are amassing wealth at an unbelievable rate and wealth they've never
yeah,
had and it did not exist in the family where this information wasn't being shared. So these conversations aren't happening. Like I have a trust, but I know so many of my peers that don't and have never even thought about creating one. So I just think that's such an interesting. And these are people that are much more wealthy than I am.
it's crazy. Well, the thing that the trust is tough because there's thousands of them out there, right? I mean, I'm sure you're aware,
Yeah, no,
like of all the different
yeah,
particular types of trust that do different things and all this kind of thing. What's
yeah,
beautiful about this little marriage is that it's a seller carryback with a business trust, and it's a
yeah,
special business trust that isn't commingled with other trusts and funds and all that kind of stuff. So you have different things you'll do. A Delaware statutory trust where you basically 1031 into a REIT,
yeah,
right? Enough money is
yeah,
basically illiquid for 10 years. Just don't even count on it. You'll get mailbox money. You have
mm,
zero management. You don't choose what it is. You'll get a check, but that thing's stuck. Like you're not getting out of it.
that's wild.
uh,
Yeah,
totally different than some of these other
what
trusts, right?
you're,
Or a living
yeah,
trust, right?
yeah,
You would use a deferred sales trust in
yeah,
conjunction with a living
revocable,
trust,
revocable. Mm-hmm.
put it underneath,
Yeah,
and all this kind of stuff, right? So trust is a I don't know a buzzword that I feel like a lot
broader.
of people, yeah, they think, oh, it's trust, like, oh yeah, we have a trust. It's like, well, it's different. It's not just a trust, right? There's thousands of them, so it's really nuanced if you kind of get down into the weeds.
Yeah,
Um, so
interesting.
do you guys do anything like that as far as like in your planning and stuff like that?
Okay.
Are
Mm-hmm.
you getting these people that are like have these highly appreciated value, like tech businesses for sure, these big valuation swings all of a sudden that they're going public, that hey, we got issues here now, you know?
So customers from a customer space, no, all of our businesses are small. They make no more than a few million a year and maybe have a handful of, employees that don't have or really even plan to have massive exits. A lot of these people are just like, I just want to be able to pay my bills, which
Yeah.
is a different, I think, thing you might be talking about. But wealth planning, I think, like you're saying, it's similar in tax. It's like there's so many spaces you can take tax planning. Tax planning can go in terms of like wealth, benefit, and capital gains and all the things you're discussing, but it also can just be the very simple, how do I get to level? The amount of like lack of education and information that exists for the masses of America around tax, unbelievable. Like, I don't know if you ever
Yeah.
sat on TikTok before and just Googled tax. The amount of people that are like, what even is tax? Or why do I even have to do this? There's just literally no information around it to even be thinking to the next level of like wealth management. Just feels, I think, like a thing that people have not faced yet or been able to, I think through. Even tax planning in its simplest form is a new concept to people, let alone wealth, wealth planning. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not quite to answer your question.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because
Yeah,
I didn't even think about that. Like
yeah,
the fact that a whole mass of there's a whole market out there of
yeah,
people who have absolutely no idea what taxes are. Like,
mm,
I've been around it for such a long time. It kind of just is an assumption in our
yeah,
mind that, oh, people know what's going on. And I think what you've just kind of done is it
yeah, no,
opened up this whole idea that no, people don't know. Like, this is a huge piece.
yeah,
So I think you're filling
yeah,
a fundamental need in a lot of people's lives just by starting your business.
yeah.
So kudos to you because that's smart.
Thank you.
Okay. If someone's interested in finding you, learning more
Yep.
about what your company does and so on and so forth, where can they find you?
Mm. Yeah, compliant.co, you've got it there on the screen. We are everywhere on all social media at Compliant App, APP. And then you personally can just find me everywhere at Shiloh Johnson. My whole name spelled out.
Okay, let's talk about compliant really quick because you spelled it differently.
Sure.
So, can
I
you give us the
did.
story
Yeah.
with the why?
Yeah, for sure. So we couldn't trademark the name with the I. So that's that. The deeper thing is that the Y is capital in the way that we spell it on branding because we want to remind ourselves constantly that we are serving you or the average business owner, people that are just trying to figure it out. We want them to know we are always thinking about you.
Awesome. So that's compliant with a Y,
Mm,
COMPLYANT.co. So if you're looking for Shiloh, compliant with a Y.
that's where you can find me.
Okay, cool. You ready to get into the lightning round?
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah, I'm throwing this on you. Okay, what's your favorite leadership quote?
No one wants to work this hard.
Okay. What's your favorite book?
There's a couple. There's a lot. What I read that made the difference for me early on when we were raising was venture deals.
Was which one?
Venture deals.
Venture Deals. Okay.
Hmm.
What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, there's so much. That you are the difference maker. That there's not much really keeping you from it except you. There is no haters. There are no people that are standing in your way. It's you.
Interesting. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up here. So, guys, if you're interested in reaching out to Shiloh, go to compliant.co,
Yeah.
COMPLYANT.co, and you can reach her there or just Google her name. She'll pop up everywhere. If you've got questions about the first step, this is where you go. If you are interested at all in learning more about the Deferred Sales Trust or how that can be used, if you've got a highly appreciated asset that you're looking to liquidate, you can come to our mastermind class every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com and register for it there. You can also reach out to us and book a call with us there if you got a live deal that you want to discuss and this is something that piqued your interest. So, Shiloh, thanks so much for coming on. Do you have any parting
For
words?
sure. No, this is fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on. And thanks again, everybody, for listening to another
For sure.
episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe that not having a clear plan is the enemy. Using proven tax control strategies and knowledge that taxes are coming up, they're due when they're due, not paying penalties, interest, and fees, and all that kind of stuff is the key to creating and preserving more wealth. So please rate, review, subscribe, hit the like button, subscribe button, notification bell. Thank you again for listening, and be sure to check us out, capitalgainstaxsolutions.com, and make sure to go to compliant.co and reach out to Shiloh. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you on the next one.